Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech. An iOS 18.2 RC or release candidate has been out for over a day or so, and there's even more to talk about as far as features since the iOS 18.2 RC is out. What's new video? We'll not only talk about features, but also talk about the overall experience. I've been using it full time on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and iPad Pro, and we'll talk about your experience based off the YouTube community poll, where at the time of this video, there's over 9,000 votes and 120 comments. I've gone through all the comments to determine what the overall experience is like, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video as I'll read some of those and go over them. Now, there are some things to talk about as far as news this week. Apple actually released a music recap for 2024, as did Spotify as well, but if we go into Apple Music, you'll see it says replay and share your year in music. So we'll go into this. Give it just a moment, it loads and goes through your overall replay, covering different artists you've listened to, things you've listened to the most. This is my entire family listening to this, top songs, top albums, and more. So lots of different music here. Of course, this is going to pertain the most to whatever you're listening to, and you can go month by month as well. Apple also introduced the top podcast of the year. So if we go home here, maybe we'll go to browse. You'll see it here at the top where it says Hysterical Podcast Show of the Year. So if you want to listen to that, they won Podcast Show of the Year. If you've been wanting an Apple Vision Pro and you live in Taiwan, it's now available for pre-order and will go on sale on December 17th. So Apple's starting to slowly roll it out around the world. It's now available in a few different countries. Let me know what you think of Vision Pro in the comments below. Now, Apple continues to work on the next version of iPhone, and the iPhone 17 Air is something we keep hearing more and more news about, that Apple's actually going to be releasing a super slim phone next year called the iPhone Air or iPhone 17 Air or iPhone Slim. The latest is that this will be a 2mm thinner phone than what we have with the 16 Pro. It would make it about 6.25mm and be the thinnest phone Apple has ever made. So I'm not sure we want this, or is this something that many people really want? For example, if we take a look at the iPhone 6, with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, we had an issue with it bending because it was aluminum and fairly weak. They fixed it with the 6S, but it was something that they had to work through. But it's even thinner than this phone. It would be their thinnest iPhone ever made. So we'll talk more about this with the regular weekly news update, but I just wanted to see what you thought about having an even thinner phone. I think it would be really nice, sort of something a little bit different. But again, there's going to be some compromises here with battery and more. So I think most people would want more battery. This week, Tesla finally made an app for the Apple Watch. This is something people have wanted for a very long time, and it's now available. It allows you to lock the car or unlock it, see the state of charge, control the climate, open the front trunk, or just see other statistics as well, such as a sleep for 3 hours. So that's something that's available if you weren't already aware. Apple Wallet actually gets an update if you live in New Mexico. So if we go into the Wallet app, and within the Wallet app, if we go to driver's licenses or state ID, we now have a new option for New Mexico. Now, these have to be added by your local government. They have to work directly with Apple to get this added, but now you can use your driver's license on your phone. Of course, you want to carry your regular license with you if you need to hand it to someone if you have an issue, but either way, this is something you can do now and keep it on your phone in New Mexico. Let me know if you've tried it out and how it's working for you in any of these states. One of the great features of Apple Vision Pro is the ability to watch sports, and live sports that are immersive. Apple sort of has shown a couple previews of this, but we haven't seen anything just yet. However, with the latest Vision OS 2.2 RC, you can now watch 5 sports games at once using multi-view. So that's something that's a new feature that's available on Vision Pro. And let me know if you want a Vision Pro update as far as the next version with 2.2 once it releases to the public next week. As far as new features on the iPhone, well, one of the things coming to iOS 18.2 is new wallpapers within Safari. However, not all phones are seeing this for some reason. So if we go into Safari here, you'll see that if we go to Edit, we don't have all of the wallpaper. However, 9to5Mac has actually published all of the different wallpapers here. So if you want to check those out yourself, we'll just scroll over here. You can actually download these, and I'll put them in the description below so you can check them out yourself. So you can use them on your iPhone or your Mac. You'll see you can add them here. So if you want to use them in Safari or just on your iPhone altogether or with a Mac, you can now do that. Also, Genmoji actually has a new menu when you go to create them. If we go into messages, you'll see in messages, if I go ahead and create this Genmoji here, a cat with a hat, give it just a moment here, it creates it. And then if you tap the 3-dot menu, you now can copy, share, save to stickers, add a caption, or report a concern. So that's something that's been updated, and of course we'll cover this more in depth once it's released to the public this coming week. Now, camera control, if we go into settings and then go down to accessibility, with the latest phones we have camera control, but they haven't updated the icon with the RC. We don't know if they're going to have a separate build for the public, but so far they haven't updated it. We have one for side button, but not for camera control. So maybe it's something they just missed altogether, or they just don't care about. We're not really sure at this point. If we go into music, something I showed you before is that you can actually search with natural language. In the 18.2 RC is out video, I showed you that you could do this, search for calming music or something else. You can also search by year now. So maybe rock from 1992. Go ahead and search, and it will find it in your Apple library. So you'll see the year is actually here now where you can listen to all of those different albums. Another feature I wanted to mention is something that Apple basically confirmed with their notes with iOS 18.2 RC, and that has to do with camera control. If we press and hold on an iPhone 16 model, we go into visual intelligence if you have Apple Intelligence in your area. However, this is not available on the iPhone 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max for some reason. It's certainly capable of it, where we can just maybe search for a different phone. So maybe we'll search for this iPhone 16 Pro Max here. Give it just a second in Desert Titanium. You can search with Google. Of course, you can use Google to do this by itself, and it will bring this up. So for whatever reason, and it didn't get it right there, but for whatever reason, we can't do that on the 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max. So that's something they definitely should bring, but because we don't have this button, it looks like they've confirmed it's not going to be coming to those devices. So hopefully they update that in the future, as there's not really a reason for it not to be there. Now, as far as releases this week, well, we did get a Safari technology preview, and you'll see that here on their website to version 209, released on December 4th. It's available for macOS Sequoia and macOS Sonoma with bug fixes and more. So if you want to test out the latest web page technology, it's available now. We also got the first firmware for Beats Solo Buds to version 3A130. So we don't really know what's in that update, but they did actually push out the first update for it. Of course, this week we got all of the release candidate update versions, so basically the public release is early for developers and beta testers for things such as iPadOS 18.2, watchOS 11.2, macOS, visionOS, TV and HomePodOS, and some older versions as well. We could see an iOS 17.7.3, but we only got so far up to iPadOS 17.7.3. So we're not sure if we're going to see an update for iOS yet, but if we do, it will certainly just be security updates. Now, if you no longer want to continue on the betas after iOS 18.2, we'll talk about the release in just a moment, but if you want to stop, well, based on what we think the release will be, you can turn it off now. So if you go into your settings and then just go under General and Software Update, you can simply turn off the beta updates. And once you've turned that off, if we do have another build, once it releases to the public, you just will get a new update. Then you won't have the next update to whatever the next version is. So we expect iOS 18.2 to release to the public as soon as Monday. Mac Rumors has actually been saying this for a little while, and it looks like there's some other confirmations out there as well. So we could see it Monday on the 9th, however, we could see it later in the week. If we do see it on the 9th, I would expect iOS 18.3 Beta 1 possibly the same day, later that week or the following week, and that will be it until January. Typically, Apple does this every year. We'll have maybe the first beta of the next version. We do expect some changes with Siri and more, so some integrations there with Apple Intelligence, and then maybe we'll have beta 2 on the week of the 13th. We don't know this 100%, but that seems very likely. Now, as far as the overall experience of iOS, well, we have a few versions out there already. So far, with iOS 17.7.2, there's not really been any complaints, and you can pretty much stay on it. If we do see iOS 17.7.3, I would expect it just to be a security update, so it's safe to update, but we don't know if they're releasing that just yet. iOS 18.1.1 seems to be good for some people and not great for others. Depending on who you ask, some people say it's phenomenal, other people say it has horrible battery life and is slow or glitchy and doesn't respond to touch inputs. It just depends on who you ask. So it's really a different experience depending on the different people using it, and it can be on new phones and old phones alike. So some people are having great battery. When it comes to the iOS 18.2 RC experience, well, this definitely seems to be ready and is much more stable. And I have great news is that it seems to be the best yet. Based on what I've seen from what you've said in the comments, what I've seen online, my overall experience myself, it seems to be generally very stable just after a day or so. So that means it's doing much better than what we've seen in the past, and hopefully it stays like that, but only time will tell. But overall, the stuttering is fixed. It's nice and smooth. Going into different apps seems to be nice and fast, at least on the latest models anyway. And the only issue I've seen really is people placing apps in folders and it giving them a little bit of trouble. So you'll see you can do it, but sometimes it's a little bit problematic. But other than that, that's not anything that's causing crashes or anything like that. The touch bugs seem to be gone. Apps are able to be updated, and mail notifications are working properly now once configured. If they're not showing for you, I'm on Do Not Disturb, but if they're not showing for you, then I would go in and go to your notifications, make sure your settings are correct, and that seems to fix it. I've had no issues with mail since the update, so that's great news. As far as bugs that are still there, well, some people are saying there's lower sound volume for some. Some people still complain of slower Face ID, but we don't know if that's related to maybe a screen protector they're using. And one of the odd things is the iPhone 15 Pro wallpaper seems to be gone still. So if we go into our notifications, we'll go in and set a new wallpaper here. And if we scroll down, you'll see that we're missing the iPhone 15 Pro wallpapers. We have iPhone 16 Pro wallpapers, but no iPhone 15 Pro. We're not really sure why, but they seem to be missing. The other thing worth noting is we have the saturation bug on the wallpaper. Prior to this, we used to have the desaturation bug. Now it sort of saturates more. I personally don't mind this. You can see it right there. I don't mind that as it's not washed out. I think it looks better, but it is something that's changed in this update and seems to stay there. I'm not sure why. Maybe they tried to fix the desaturation bug, but now we have the saturation bug. Other than that, though, it seems to be pretty decent. And as far as battery life, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Cameron sent in his battery life. This is on an iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.2 RC, and this was the day before when he was on beta 4. He had 9 hours and 39 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 14 minutes of screen idle time, and it was charged a little bit since we have more than 100% usage. However, today, using it all day long with iOS 18.2 RC and then through the night, we had 6 hours and 15 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 13 minutes of screen idle time, and only using about 75% of the battery. So overall, it's getting similar battery life. I think it's doing quite well compared to what he's shown me before with iOS 18.1.1. As far as my battery life, if we take a look here, my battery health is at 100% with 68 cycles, and you can see more of that with Coconut Battery here. It's a Mac app that you can download outside the App Store. If we take a look at battery life, well, today I've been using it full time, 4 hours and 47 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 54 minutes of screen idle time, and I'm down to 35%. So it actually is doing better than it was before. You'll see here I had 5 hours and 9 minutes of screen active time and used more than 100%. I had to charge it before the night was out. So it's doing a little bit better today, much better than it was before, and I think after the next couple of days it should improve even more. As far as the overall performance, well, it seems to be pretty great overall. Going into apps such as weather or Mercury weather that I have here, open nice and fast. Going into cameras nice and fast. It was a little bit slower on the 16 Pro Max even. So if we go back in, nice and fast on the iPhone 11, going into music, maybe scrolling, and having ProMotion go up and down as far as the overall speed seems to be pretty good. No complaints there. The only time I've seen any stutter or slow down at all is the first time opening an app on the iPhone 11 and then closing it. After that, it seems to be super smooth. So I think they've done a great job here. When it comes to the overall heat, well, they're staying nice and cool overall. In fact, just using this seems to be a little bit cooler than I would expect before, just running earlier betas. So let's take a look with the thermal camera. On the iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.2 RC, we have 30.8 degrees Celsius or 31.1, and on the iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.1.1 sitting idle at about 25.5 degrees Celsius. So in general, it's doing pretty well. Of course, not using this phone is going to use less power and generate less heat, but in general, it's doing quite well. Now, if we take a look at the benchmarks, again, this is another best ever. From left to right, we have iOS 18.1.1 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, then iOS 18.2 RC on the iPhone 11, and iOS 18.2 RC on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Again, these are the best numbers I've ever had. If we take a look at the overall history, you'll see that here, 3,524 for single core. If we take a look down here, You really won't find much better here at all. The same is true for multi-core 8695. If you go through, we got pretty close to it with some of the earlier betas, but in general, we're doing very well. We're a few off here, but well within the margin of error, and it's plenty fast overall. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what you had to say. Sagar Sharma SV2BJ said, 18.1.1 on iPhone 15, very much stuttering, jitteriness on UI, regular app crashing and heating. Blind Gordy said, I'm on iOS 18.1.1 on my iPhone 15 Pro. Battery life is still exemplary and battery health is at 100%. I'm so looking forward to iOS 18.2 coming out next week for everything which relates to Apple Intelligence and writing tools, but especially as it is coming out to other countries such as my home country of Canada, among others. Pitch Control 1200 said, hello Aaron, this is my first time actually downloading an RC build on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. So far, after a little over 24 hours, no issues. Battery life is better since updating from iOS 18.1.1. I'm able to get through a full day without charging, which I couldn't do on iOS 18.1.1. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Oharsh0928 said, 18.2 RC seems very solid and battery life has been great on my 16 Pro Max. Definitely better than 18.1.1. Only issue I'm having is when I delete an email from my Apple Watch, it's still showing an email badge on my iPhone even though the email is gone. I'm hoping it's just because I'm running the public version of watchOS and not the 11.2 RC. Bbaum17 says 18.2 RC on 16 Pro Max coming from 18.2 Public Beta 3. Still waiting to compare battery life, but so far everything seems to be great. Been running Genmoji and Image Playground quite a bit and noticed it doesn't get quite as warm as the previous public betas. Overall, been very pleased with the RC build. Barry Schaefer said, running iOS 18.2 RC on 16 Pro Max. I've already seen better battery life. I encountered 2 minor bugs so far and reported them in the feedback app. I did notice that not all of my stickers show up as stickers, but most do. In iMessage, it was cool to see the Genmoji generated emojis appear as emoji and not as stickers. Du Bois said, jumped on to the 18.2 RC for funsies. Must say it is very smooth on my iPhone 12 Pro and the settings app looks quite striking with the changes. Intrigued to see what messaging apps can replace iMessage, but otherwise quite liking the fluidity. Keep up the awesome videos, Aaron, been enjoying your content since iOS 10. Thanks for hanging around so long. When it comes to Apple CarPlay, well, I've experienced pretty good connectivity overall. I'm using it wirelessly in my car, and depending on the car it is, it seems like it's hit or miss. For me, it seems to stay connected, but occasionally I'll get some bit rate that sort of drops out, and maybe that has to do with the connectivity of the phone and not the car. But it seems, depending on the manufacturer of the car, sometimes it's better or worse. But overall, it seems to be pretty decent. The same is true with AirPods, whether it's AirPods 4, AirPods 3, or AirPods Pro 2. They all seem to be working pretty well. With the previous beta, sometimes it would drop. This time around, it seems much better between not just using them, but also switching between devices and general overall connectivity. So definitely an improvement with this update. We could have another firmware update for them as well. So that's everything with iOS 18.2 RC or release candidate. This seems to be a very stable experience and to be one of the best yet we've seen. It should be at this point, and I think Apple will actually leave us with this until January with hopefully a very stable update that doesn't get any worse, but only just gets a little bit better with storage and more. Let me know if you've found any additional features I haven't mentioned in the What's New video or this video. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And also, how is your experience so far? Are you experiencing the same thing, or do you have a different experience? Again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.